So it's me again, and I guess I'm here to talk more about my opinions on hot trigger topics like narcissism and autism. And I'm just really fascinated by the different autistic and narcissistic people I have in my life, and when they interact, I find it so interesting. And so a lot of these are just my musings, and hopefully they're educated guesses, and a little bit of it is just data collecting. So none of this is causation, all of this is just correlative. As I previously said, I looked back and I thought about some of the things that I said. I don't think I need to make any changes as of yet, but I've been a bit too afraid to post publicly, so there's that. I've started off by just letting a list of friends listen in and see what they think about, especially important things like the quality, can you even hear me? All of that stuff that goes with it. And so I've got these times to, take a little Nelly out for walks, and I just want to get some of these thoughts out of my head. And wow, there's just this giant plane overhead. And I need a pause button or something for these planes. Yeesh. And so I was looking at the different stuff, starting with the playbook for narcissism, and I just want to get some of the narcissist stuff off of my chest. Some of the things that come to mind to me of when I was dealing with them. One of the first things I had to deal with indirectly was the trash picker. If you ever come across a trash picker, it is one of the most obnoxious traits to deal with. I had a sibling who basically was writing down their opinions and, trying to get their emotions off their chest, and the person went through their notes, their diary journals, which I found to be extremely offensive. And it was good for me to hear that they did that, because it warned me not to, and it warned me that this person would do something like that. When somebody has creative, journaling, where they're getting stuff off their chest, that's actually really constructive. So if you haven't tried journaling, people call that a diary. Oh no, a diary. But in this case, they were doing a style where they were writing kind of aggressive, kind of emergency emotions to try to get them off their chest and help them regulate. And self-regulation is huge. I think that self-regulation needs to be taught in schools to help so much more with, oh no, baby girl, you're tangled, come here. And I think it needs to be taught more to kids that, they don't realize that they're doing these things to get their emotions off of them. And I think if they were just given the attention that it needs, in this case they're told, hey, you have strong emotions, that's okay, and if you do this particular thing, it might help you regulate their emotions. And a lot of kids don't realize this, that they go, say the boys go play an aggressive sport, or the girls go do something artistic or creative. I don't know, there's a bit gendered. It doesn't matter what you end up doing. I know plenty of girls who kicked my butt in sports, and so you tell them to go do these things at a young age, and if it's socially acceptable, not causing any harm to anyone else, then these are great ways for regulation. And regulation probably going to be one of my main topics of this little vlog talk, my walk and talk, my doggy walks. And regulation is so darn important. And so as far as a trash picker goes, you gotta watch out for somebody who does something like that. Going through your personal stuff is what I'm using to describe a trash picker in this context. They basically have no respect for your boundaries, and they have no respect for your belongings. And some of this stuff is just crazy. When you hear it, it sounds Machiavellian. That's like when you hear Machiavellian, you should think Disney villain. no way of knowing if I'm pronouncing that right. I can't remember if Machiavellian is French or German. Hey, no tugging. And so, you're tangled up now. Come here. Come here. You got all tangled up. Give me this paw. Nope. One more time. Good girl. Whew. Okay. Good girl. And so, basically, they would, going through your personal belongings, not showing respect for your stuff. This is sinister personality traits, right? Like, these are not socially acceptable things to be doing, and a narcissist has no problem doing it. They're usually trying to get information on you, and a narcissist is constantly trying to get info on you because they need to know how to best to control you. And so this trash picking mentality of going through your personal life is a way to kind of get blackmail on you. These are abhorrent personality traits. If you find yourself going through someone's stuff, you gotta ask yourself why. Maybe there is justifications, and if there is, then maybe you shouldn't do it and you should just walk away from the situation. Here's an example. If you're in a relationship and you think there's cheating and you feel the need to go through your partner's phone, then you should probably just leave the person. If you can't trust them, then there is no relationship, and looking for trust doesn't actually give you trust. Instead, it just confirms that basically you're terrified of abandonment and you're lashing out. And instead of resolving the issues, you think that it's going to somehow resolve by searching through your partner's stuff. So there's going to be narcissists in relationships all the time, and that should be like, kind of a red flag. You make up good justifications because maybe there was promiscuity or infidelity before, then you don't trust the person. And you gotta ask yourself, well, what are you doing? As far as not trusting your kids, I noticed that there's a lot of parental desires to go through your kids' stuff, and you're constantly looking for them to be, probably on illicit substances or doing illegal things. If they're underage, then what's best is to find a way to handle that situation without going through their stuff. Here's what I recommend. Having them talk to a therapist about what they are concealing, if you think that they're concealing something, right? There's ways to do this. Or you talk to the person upfront, open and honest, and you work on that with them, and if you are in a position of authority over them, say parental to child, then you say, hey, let's go through your phone, unlock it, and if you need to delete some stuff, I'm going to give you some time to delete it, if there's anything on there that shouldn't be, if that's the kind of household that you want to run. I'm terrified about how raising kids is going to be such a complicated issue, because if you were raised by narcissists, then you might not know every sense of love or belonging, and those love and belonging feelings that you should have been getting and the support that you should have been having is often tied with, went through a spider web or something, often tied with negative enforced feelings, resentment, stuff that you definitely need to unpack and talk to with a therapist. And of course, because nobody can afford therapy in the States, then do what everybody else does best, which is talk to their friends. It's a sad band-aid for the situation. By no means is going to your peers going to be equivalent to getting actual paid for services that you would get from licensed therapists. The problem is it's a capitalistic society, and we literally put a price tag on healthcare. So I'll stop with the political stuff. Where are you going? Come on, baby. This way. Yeah, this way. Good girl. And so, getting back to the things that a narcissist will do is that instead of resolving them in an open and honest way, they are going to use secrecy and subversion to get what they want from you. And that's just not okay, right? what we got to do is kind of watch out for if somebody does those things. And the kind of red flags about them not respecting your boundaries is going to be things like waking you up when you're sleeping. A narcissist really struggles with you getting happiness or sustenance from something that is not them, and I'll go into that more. But things to look out for: if they have no problem waking you up before you're supposed to, big red flag. They basically show no regard for your sleep. And it's very difficult to be a functioning human when you don't have sleep. So if somebody wakes you up for something and they don't want to, resolve whatever it is, then I would consider those things red flags. Non-red flags would be, lightning, thunderstorms, a cat barfing in the distance, things that need to be immediately resolved, obviously. But it's usually in regards to not with like couples who are sleeping in the same bed, but more so like where an adult will come into your room, barge into your room when you're sleeping, no knocking, right? Like lack of respect for privacy, opening the door when they say, "Hey, anybody in here?" and then they just open the door. Like, they're going through the rituals that make it look like, and they're like, "Oh, well, I said, is anybody in here?" And, "Oh, I knocked." And you're like, "Oh, geez, like, that is not okay at all," right? Leave the squirrel alone. Leave the squirrel alone. And so, if you find them going through those kind of rituals where they pretend to adhere to the social standard, especially with the defensive mechanisms, it'd be like, "Hey, you just barged right in." They'd be like, "Oh, no, but I knocked." I'm like, okay, when you knock, you're supposed to wait for a response, right? And if you don't get a response, that is permission or not permission to enter. Right? And so they've already jumped to the conclusion that they're entering, right? They are showing that they don't actually care about your boundaries in this regards. And that's something to look for if you're getting these red flags about if a person is, has these narcissistic tendencies or not. Now, just because they have narcissistic tendencies does not make them a narcissist. And as I talked about earlier in my autism versus narcissism, I kind of realized that, what is it, baby girl? Great, lost my train of thought. Oh darn. Yeah. So, if they have these traits, doesn't necessarily make them a narcissist, but these things can lead to deciding if someone is going to be a problem in that way and what to do with that. Well, darn, I totally lost what I was talking about. But so anyways, back to respecting your boundaries and your privacy. Examples of them doing these things where they pretend to uphold, this like social norms, but then don't actually do that. Sit. Good girl. Oh, we got another doggy. Come here. Come on. Yeah, she's just a baby still in training.
She's that big.
She just wants to play. Yeah, but you're too big. I know. Got it. Doggy crossing. I know you're excited. Good girl. Alright. Let's continue, baby. Let's continue. Yeah, let's go. Come on. She's such a good girl. Oh. Okay. So where was I? Now we're really off the topic. Hey, that's the doggy walks for you. So back to the playbook. The playbook was not respecting your boundaries and not respecting you and your property. Okay. So I covered going through your stuff, waking you up. Some examples of some clear boundary pushing would be talking about you. It is, personally, I got a lot to pull from here, but I remember growing up and hearing people talk about me, and I noticed that all of my failings, shortcomings were always problems that I had, and anything good that I did was to make them look better. And that kind of covers the heart of narcissism, is anything bad they will flip, and if it's pointed at them, then they're the victim. If it's pointed at you, it's you need to improve. And then when something good happens, you will be getting no credit for it. And I know a lot of people are going to be like, you don't always need credit for these things. With a narcissist, it's taxing to the point where you've never received any credit or validation. And so some of these things will be like, embarrassing, where they have no problem discussing your personal life with other people. That's gossiping. In my experience, a lot of narcissists are gossips, and it's because they're constantly comparing themselves to other people, and they're making these justifications that they're good. And this can be said for a lot of people, unfortunately. We make justifications to say, well, I'm not that bad. I'm not as bad as this person. If you catch yourself making that, then I guess it's time to start confessing. Look for being open and honest with others about, you know what, I am judging this person because I think I'm better. If you find yourself saying, I'm disappointed in somebody, you gotta ask yourself, at what point are you in a position of authority over this person? Using shame tactics like, I'm disappointed in somebody, I feel like those things need to kind of go away. They are extremely unhealthy, I would say, narcissistic traits. Now, just because you have a narcissistic trait doesn't make you a narcissist. And doing this from time to time, sometimes you're just struggling with regulating your emotions. That's totally normal. It's when it becomes, when you double down, don't back down, and do it repeatedly, that's when it becomes a very real problem. Because if I do this once, where I say, you know what, well, at least I'm not as bad as this person, another person might be like, yeah, okay, in this situation, you're trying to cope or justify with your decision-making processes. That can be just a lapse in judgment. A lapse in judgment and narcissistic tendencies are two very real different things, right? And oftentimes with a narcissist, they are pushing the narrative, attempting to control the narrative. They're doing it from a position of, I guess you would say, deliberateness. Like, their goal is to be the puppet master. Their goal is to, they're crowdfunding. They are basically searching for attention, and they want to be ahead of the narrative. And so, if you did something bad, then they're not going to take any credit for that. For, especially if they're a parent and you're a child, well, they didn't learn that from me. That's one of my favorite quotes. Oh, they didn't get that from me. Shows lack of ownership. And it's like, well, you're not taking any kind of responsibility for what your kid learned. And then they will go to say, oh, well, it's those kids that they're hanging out with, or they're influenced by these people. And if you look at it, why are they being influenced by these people? Narcissists often break down your integrity, they break down your valid reality, and you end up finding a solace in people who want to also take advantage of you. They're kind of grooming you to be taken advantage of. That's the problem with a narcissist. We see this a lot with religion, where it is God-focused and the God demands worship, and it kind of comes off as a narcissist, You won't have any other gods before me. It comes off as, okay, so there are other gods, and it leaves you thinking about things like, what are they doing? Why do they demand you to give your praise and judgment to them? And this is why it's so easy for narcissists to hide in religion, by basically making you forgive anything that they did wrong, bringing it up, not okay. And on the subject of bringing up things, I noticed that someone had brought up something wrong that I had done as a child, and I got offended, and asked the person, how many times are you going to bring it up? And I realized that is actually not okay. They need to be able to continue to bring it up because they were invalidated earlier on in their life by a narcissist, and they need to be able to bring it up as much as they possibly can to help, cope with it. Is to help learn basically that the person that you're speaking to is going to be safe, that they're going to remember the events. And it's all too often that a narcissist, fails to remember the events or wants to push away and not accept responsibility for said events. I see you creeping up on this squirrel. I see you creeping up on her. You think I don't notice, but you're pulling. Come here. See it? Good girl. Leave the squirrel alone. Leave the squirrel alone. That doesn't mean go chase after it. Ah! Down. Get off that tree. Come on. And so, makes you wonder, why a narcissist is constantly trying to gain control of the situation, and they need to get this praise from the situation, so anything good that you do is going to make them look good. And you will constantly see a narcissist doing this. They are praise farming all the time. They're just looking for, things that they did that gives them attention. And narcissists love attention so much. Attention is kind of back to Narcissus staring in the pool and the pond, where he's basically, finding out what, how good and great he looks. And that's what they're doing here in this regards for the attention bit. So if their child does something good, hey, my child got picked in this play, or my child is, doing well in school, they got in this honor roll thing. It starts off as something simple, as wanting to draw attention to and give praise to. Now, if you're dealing with family, this is such a mixed bag, because you're kind of torn between, yeah, I do want to give praise to this person, but where is this person? This person isn't present. You're doing this because you want me to respond to you, so when I get a message from a parent who's like, yeah, my kid is in honor roll, I'm so proud of him, and then I call and talk to that kid, and the kid's just like, yeah, whatever, I'm gonna miss my friends, I don't want to be moved to a different program. You start realizing that it's like, hey, wait a second, something's going on here that I didn't see before. It's too easy to fall into this trap of congratulating the parent. Oh wow, you must be so proud of your kid, for doing well in school. It's like, the praise is supposed to go to the kid. I don't see the kid boasting about getting an honor roll. Now, they probably don't know to talk about these subjects and understand the subjects are okay to bring up. But here's what you can do to, kind of stop a narcissist in their tracks, is you don't need to respond to the hype, the attention that they're drawing to themselves. If they draw attention to someone else and trying to make themselves look good, and you want to talk to that person about it, I think that's totally normal. And what I think the leading problem is that narcissists will do these things where they'll be like, yeah, I did so great at work and I'm so wonderful and people gave me all this praise. It's like, you're just boasting. Since when has boasting been okay? And we have really, as a society, we've overlooked when someone's being a braggart, and it's not a healthy thing. And now when I'm looking at it from these perspectives of, kind of a autistic versus narcissistic perspective, I'm noticing that kind of braggart is a red flag for narcissistic tendencies. You could be a boaster and not be a narcissist. You can be a big old gossip or a big braggart. That's totally, it's not acceptable, but it is common from the anthropological perspective, and that doesn't make you a narcissist. These are the tendencies and the traits that kind of build on narcissism. You might have somebody who is just a darn gossip, but they just can't keep their mouth shut, and they're just bored or lonely. They're not doing it because they're seeking control. They're not doing it because the attention seeking is designed to get ahead of the narrative. And those are the things that you notice become red flags when the parent is saying, the kid's doing really well in school in spite of you or because of me. And it's like, there's the barb underneath the bait, And that's what they're officially trying to do. So you'll see other people say, well, they can't be that bad of a parent because the kid is doing so well in these regards. And it's like, okay, so you're taking all the credit and you're basically blaming the other person. See, this stopped being about the kid doing well. This started being about control and trying to get ahead of a narrative. And they're just things that I think that people should pay more attention to so that you realize when you're being a flying monkey. I think I mentioned flying monkeys before, but I'll go over it again. With flying monkeys, you're basically doing the bidding of a narcissist. So, it comes from Wizard of Oz, right? And they've got these little, I'll get you, my pretties. The flying monkeys go out and do the narcissist's bidding. And in this regard, they will often be manipulated, hear the side of truth that they want to hear from the narcissist, and then you're presented with the flying monkey where they'll say the information kind of skewed, lacking the nuance, or just straight up as an attack against you. And you'll suddenly be like, wait, why is this person turned against me, right? That's going to be a big red flag if a narcissist is in your presence, because turning people against you is how they do control, right? Remember, they're doing this deliberately. I think that's one of the signs that makes them more of a narcissist. Sometimes people do things without thinking, if there is gossiping and or backstabbing, that kind of stuff for individual selfish reasons, one-offs, like with, cheating or infidelity or wanting to play with a particular kid at a playground, those kind of things. That's not the red flag for narcissism. It's when it's deliberate and precise, when they know what they're doing, when they're getting off on the attention or the problem that it's causing. And I guess that comes to the point about the difference between somebody who is, they make a backstab because of conflicted personal reasons versus they're being a deliberate narcissist. What are you doing and why are you pulling so hard? That's a dead squirrel. Leave it. Nope. I'm gonna leave roadkill alone. Nope. Come on, leave it. She's fixated. I know you want it. That's not okay. So let's see here. Where was I talking about? And gaining control, pitting people against each other. So if you ever feel like you have to walk on eggshells because the person that is controlling you is pitting people against you, then you might be in the premise of a narcissist. And so they're going to use their flying monkeys to basically get control of you. They will say, what good things another sibling did, and that is a means of control. Now, if your parent is saying that your sibling did something good, and you feel like utter dog crap afterwards from hearing that, then you're probably knee-deep in a narcissistic problem already, right? When my siblings did well, I was always fascinated. I was when my brother did well in school, I was just wow, he is so amazing. I was just so happy for him. And when my sister did well in school, I was always just so kind of jealous, I was just same grade, same age, but she's just so much better at these things than I am, None of these were directed at a narcissist, but when I was compared to a next door neighbor, that's when all of a sudden I felt gross. I was like, why am I being compared to this next door neighbor? And why is this person being put on a pedestal and being portrayed as the perfect person? This person is so perfect that, everything they do is perfect. Well, why can't we be like them? And, they were perfect. They literally had the 5.0 GPA, which is all the weighted classes, all A pluses kind of thing, where they get scholastic, varsity. They were in, multiple sports. And, of course, in the church, they were deep in the church, choir, drama, Awanas. If you don't know what Awanas is, then you're really lucky. That is the equivalent of Christian Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, where it's worth college credits towards, getting into your Christian campus. So after my narcissistic, people in my life compared me constantly to this next door neighbor about how perfect they were, that's when I was stuck with going, okay, I feel like utter garbage because I will never measure up to this person. I just physically can't. I just don't got it in me. And those feelings made me feel terrible. And it stopped feeling like this person was being used as an example and this person was instead being used as a form of control. Instead of telling me, why can't you do better in school, it was, why can't you be more like this person? And instead of addressing the issues that they were having with me head on, instead it was more about this control thing. Narcissists seldom actually are going to confront you about a problem that they have. And I guess that's the key red flag right there that I just worked my way into thinking about, because I had no intention of talking about that. But instead of talking to you out in the open, I had mentioned talking to your kids about what's on their phone or having a third party do it. I have seen that shows that you have control over your emotions, and you're more regulated, and you're less likely to, get out of control, get angry, especially if you're struggling with the things that they're doing, what they're doing is upsetting to you. And it made me realize that that's the problem that narcissists have, is that they tend to avoid direct conflict because they don't have control over a direct conflict. But what they do have control over is manipulating you from a distance, using tactics that are meant to shame and guilt you. If you feel the need to shame and guilt somebody, then probably time to come clean and start opening up about why do you feel the need to shame or condemn somebody, because those traits are not healthy for society. If it's somebody in your life, you're trying to control a narrative when it's applicable, or when it's not associated with a narcissism, probably still negative, but people like to shame others online for the things that they do that are politically incorrect. That's not an example that I'm providing for a narcissist, right? That's showing that you don't have a direct control, and so your best method is to kind of publicly shame. Very different than the feelings that I'm describing. I'm talking about how I felt stuck in a car where I had somebody basically tell me I was never going to be as good enough as this person is, right? So if you're feeling the need to shame somebody, and it's usually indirect, that's going to be the red flag, the problem that you're experiencing. If you did something politically incorrect and you're being shamed, and you're trying to dodge it, then you might be the narcissist in this regards. Not wanting to take accountability for your actions is going to be a big hot topic for some things that narcissists go through. A lot of people are constantly struggling with accepting responsibility for their actions, and it can stem from a lot of things, so it's really convoluted to disambiguate. That means discern when somebody is acting like a narcissist, trying to defend themselves righteously, or trying to defend themselves unrighteously, just not narcissistic in these tendencies. A narcissist will never apologize, so there's that. They give terrible apologies, and I think that one of the things to look for in a narcissist is the inability to apologize and take responsibility for their things. I can give you some great examples of apologies that I've seen recently that just fit the bill perfectly. They will say things like, "I'm sorry, but it's this person's fault," not taking accountability. "I'm sorry, but you did this," shifting the blame back onto you. "Oh, I'm sorry, I guess I'm just not perfect." And now we have playing the victim card, and playing the victim card is going to be, kind of the top priority. If you ever point out that they did something wrong, they'll just say, "Oh, well, I tried my best, I'm not perfect." That's a red flag. It doesn't mean they're narcissists, it's just a red flag. I've seen another one where this guy online who I talked to, was not expecting him to show such narcissistic tendencies, but he basically told me that he was sorry, but he would do it again. And I took such offense to that, because I was like, how is that an apology if you tell me that you messed up, but you will actually do it again? You're basically admitting to planning on mistreating me in the future? Like, that ain't good. An apology usually involves, "Hey, I messed up, and I'm sorry, and I'm going to give you validation that I did something wrong and I hurt you, and the feelings that you have are valid, and I'm going to do my best not to do this again. Here's what I'm going to do differently," Now, autistic people have this problem with excuses and explanations, and I'm just going to segue into this while I still have time, because I haven't quite worn this puppy out yet. She's super happy. Last time we went on an hour walk, and that was too much. We're at 35 minutes now, so I'm going to cut it off here probably soon. But in the meantime, with an autistic person, apologies can get very dicey. Because in my experience, autistic people are very focused on what's correct, not right. An autistic person has usually no problem with being wrong, and it's their desire to be correct. As I said before, I have these little folders in my brain that kind of holds what's politically okay and what's not politically okay, or what's socially acceptable and what's not, and I use these things as guides and gauges to figure out how to act in the real world. And so if somebody says I did something bad or wrong, I'm instantly hurt because I usually have respect for this person. Oh, jeez. Just pulled me off the walkway. Down, girl. I know. Squirrels are teasing her. You're caught. Come here. I got caught. There we go. And so, what was I saying? So the narcissist's apologies are, never apologizing, but with an autistic person, they have no problem being wrong. Yeah, they're going to be hurt and there'll probably be a lot of emotions flying, but their goal is usually to ask you questions to figure out exactly what they did was wrong. And oftentimes they're going to say, I don't understand, and that's going to be frustrating. So if you're dealing with an autistic person and they're asking questions, listen, don't get upset. They're usually asking precision questions to isolate what they did that was wrong. And they're asking these questions because they feel like they need to understand better what they did was wrong. Once they have a better understanding, they have that little backup in their folders or their programming. They will be like, okay, I understand what I did was wrong, and why what I did was wrong. And you might get frustrated because you might be doing something silly, like I talked before about the hat rule, where you might be pushing a societal norm on somebody without realizing you're pushing an unjust or unfair societal norm on somebody. I can see an example with a person who hangs up on the phone, and you get really upset at the person, they hang up on you. So you call them back and you chew them out, and you're like, that's socially unacceptable. Why did you do that? Why did you just hang up without saying anything? And then this person will, do the same thing too, whenever it fits their needs. And it's like, hey, maybe it is inappropriate to hang up on the person, but the level at which you're upset at them probably is coming out a little too strong. And it sounds like instead of dealing with the problem at hand, which is what you're not doing, you're instead pushing the societal norm on the person, which is more important or in favor of your point. And if you bring that up to an autistic person where you say, hey, my point that I'm bringing up to say why you did was wrong, autistic person's gonna be like, hey, it feels like this isn't really that relative of a point, or in this regards, you're using your emotions to make your point more valid, or you're using it as a justification. And this can be really infuriating to non-autistic people, because an autistic person is like, I have no problem admitting I'm wrong when I'm wrong. And you being upset does not mean it's a justification for that I'm wrong. You're just upset. And forcing an apology out of an autistic person is never a good idea, because they're going to ask you why. Why are you forcing an apology? If they feel like they've done something wrong, usually an autistic person will apologize right off the bat. That's my opinion on how autistic people usually act. There's all kinds of autistic people with all kinds of levels of autism. Not everyone's going to apologize. So this is an overgeneralization about what I see with autistic people, and the main focus is that be ready for them to ask a lot of questions. That should be the main takeaway. About, they might ask you pointed questions, they might ask you very precise questions that you might not understand why, and they're trying to get to the bottom of it. And if you love the autistic person, then work with them to get to the bottom of it with them, and try your best not to get upset. If you know the person has autism, or if they're showing the traits, then I recommend having patience, because they're going to function very fluidly and quickly with you if you guys have the same understanding, and it can be jarring if you guys aren't on the same page, right? Their operating system is very different from yours, and so that's all I'm gonna say for meow. Like I said, all I can say for today, and yeah, I'll let you guys go for now. Thanks for listening to my rant, my little doggy walk vlog, and I'll see you guys later. Ciao. Goodbye.